The night had settled thick and heavy over the small coastal town of Marrow's End. A low, persistent fog clung to the ground like a shroud, swallowing the familiar shapes of houses and trees in a damp, cold embrace. The street lamps flickered faintly, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to dance just beyond the edge of vision. Inside a small, weather-beaten cottage at the edge of town, Clara sat curled in her favorite armchair by the fireplace. The flames crackled softly, casting a warm glow that barely pushed back the creeping chill in the room. Outside, the wind murmured through the skeletal branches of ancient oaks, carrying with it a faint whisper she couldn't quite catch. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and sighed. It was her first night alone in the cottage since her grandmother passed away, and the silence felt too deep, too empty. Suddenly, the old wooden door creaked open, startling Clara.
"Mom? Is that you?"
She called softly, her voice barely above a whisper.
No answer.
The door swung shut with a soft thud, as if pushed by the breeze, but the night was still. Her heart began to race, and she tried to tell herself it was just her imagination. After all, the house had always made noises, the groans and creaks of settling wood, but tonight felt different. Like the house was awake. From the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow flicker near the doorway. She blinked, and it was gone.
"Hello," she said, standing up, voice trembling. "Is someone there?" Only silence.
Clara moved cautiously toward the door, her hand shaking as she reached for the brass doorknob. Just then, a faint, almost inaudible voice brushed against her ear. "Don't leave." Her breath caught. She spun around, eyes wide, searching the empty room. "Who's there?" "Show yourself," she demanded, though her voice cracked with fear. A cold gust swept through the room, snuffing out the fire. Darkness enveloped her, thick and suffocating. Then, a soft glow emerged from the far wall, an old portrait of her grandmother, painted years ago. The eyes in the painting seemed to shimmer, almost alive. "Clara," the voice whispered again, this time clearer, warmer. Trembling, Clara stepped closer. "Grandma?" The painting's eyes blinked slowly. "I'm here," the voice said. "But you must listen. The fog is not just mist. It hides something, something that wants to cross over." "Cross over?" Clara repeated, her mind racing. "Yes. The veil is thin tonight. You must stay inside until dawn, or the shadows will find you." The wind outside rose suddenly, howling like a chorus of lost souls. Clara hurried back to the fireplace, relighting the fire with shaking hands. Suddenly, the room grew icy cold. The shadows in the corners thickened, writhing like living things. From the darkness, a low, guttural growl rumbled. "Who's there?" Clara whispered, clutching the blanket. The growl morphed into a raspy voice. "We hunger. We wait in the fog." Clara backed away, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the shifting shadows. "Why are you here?" she asked, voice barely audible. "To cross," the voice replied. "To find the living, to feed on fear." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "What can I do?" The painting's eyes glowed softly. "Hold the light. The fire is your shield. Do not let it die." Minutes passed like hours as Clara stared at the flickering flames, listening to the whispers and growls outside her fragile sanctuary. The fog pressed closer, a swirling mass of dark shapes and cold breath. Just as the first pale light of dawn began to creep through the window, the voices faded. The shadows retreated. Clara collapsed into the chair, exhausted but alive. The painting's eyes dimmed. "Thank you," the voice said softly. And as the morning sun warmed the cottage, the fog lifted, but the memory of that night stayed, a quiet warning whispered in the breeze. "Sleep well, and may the light keep your shadows at bay." Clara didn't sleep that morning. Not really. She dozed, wrapped in the same blanket, one eye always open, ears tuned for whispers. Even in daylight, the cottage felt uneasy, like something had passed through it and left behind its breath on the walls. By noon, she forced herself to move. The fire had long since died, but the room remained strangely warm. She stood and went to the window, squinting into the misty garden. The fog had thinned, but hadn't completely gone.
It hung low over the grass, as if reluctant to leave. Clara picked up the phone to call her mother, but the line was dead. Of course it was. She tried her cell, no signal. She looked at the portrait again. Her grandmother's eyes were dull now, lifeless paint. But Clara remembered vividly how they blinked. "I'm losing it," she whispered. She decided to check the attic. Her grandmother had always forbidden her from going up there, ever since she was a child. "Old floorboards," she'd said. "Dangerous." But Clara suspected there was more to it. After last night, secrets didn't surprise her. The attic door creaked loudly when she opened it. A ladder dropped down. The air above was thick with dust and age. Clara climbed carefully, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. The attic smelled like mothballs and forgotten paper. Rows of old boxes lined the slanted walls, and in the far corner stood a tall wooden chest. She approached it, heart pounding. Inside were faded letters bound in twine, photographs, and a small leather-bound journal. Her grandmother's name was etched into the cover, Margaret Holloway. Clara opened it. October 13th, 1964. The fog came again. "I heard them whispering. I think they took Mr. Carter's boy. He vanished that night, right from his bed." Page after page, Clara read accounts of fog and voices, shadows, and cold. Her grandmother had known. "I made a deal," one entry read. "One life for peace. Just one. Every 30 years. And they leave us alone." Clara's breath caught. The last entry was from October 13th, 1994, exactly 30 years ago. And now, it was October 13th, 2024. A sick feeling crawled into her gut. "The veil is thin," her grandmother had said. Was this the price for that deal? Sacrifice to keep the town safe? But then, who had been taken in 1994? She scrambled to find old newspapers, clippings stored at the bottom of the chest. One caught her eye. "Local girl vanishes, 6-year-old Amelia Crane missing without a trace." Her mother's name was Amelia. Clara's hands trembled. No. Another article, months later. Amelia Crane found safe, but changed. Child found wandering Fog Road after 6 months. Her mother never talked about her childhood. Always avoided questions. Clara closed the journal slowly, heart thudding in her ears. Was the deal ever broken? Or was it still going? She needed to leave. She needed answers. But when she turned to climb down the ladder, the attic door slammed shut. From the shadows in the attic, a whisper came. "You know too much." Clara spun around. Nothing. The air thickened. The temperature dropped sharply. Her breath came out in white puffs. The journal slipped from her hands. From beneath the floorboards, she heard scratching. Slow. Deliberate. Something wanted out. Then, a voice. Clear. Familiar. Clara. Her grandmother's voice. Burn the chest. What? Clara whispered. Burn it. End the pact. The shadows surged. The chest rattled violently. The floor beneath her cracked. Clara grabbed the journal, stumbled down the ladder, and ran for the fireplace. She tossed the chest down, wood splintering, and threw in the journal, the letters, every remnant of the deal. The fire roared higher than it should have. Blue and white flames licked the ceiling. Screams, non-human, terrible, echoed through the house. The fog outside howled and began to recede, drawn backward like water from a drain. Then, silence. The fire died. And with it, the painting. Her grandmother's eyes closed, slowly, peacefully. Clara stood in the ash-strewn room, stood on her face, heart pounding, but alive. Outside, the morning was clear. Sunlight touched the trees. The fog was gone. The town would be safe. No more sacrifices. No more whispers. 2 weeks later. Clara stood at the edge of Narrow's End, suitcase in hand. She'd decided to leave, maybe for good. But before she did, she walked to the cliffside cemetery to visit her grandmother's grave. A bouquet of fresh wildflowers lay there already. She frowned. She hadn't told anyone she was coming. A note rested beneath the flowers. It was written in her grandmother's handwriting. "Thank you, Clara. But beware, the fog remembers." Clara looked up. The wind stirred. And far on the horizon, beyond the sea, just for a moment, she thought she saw mist beginning to rise. The end.